What's up, everyone? I'm your host, Vik Chokshi. Welcome to today's edition of Chok Talk, brought to you by Sports Intel. Today's guest is my guy, Sam Panayotovich. If you love to gamble, Sam is your guy. He's a betting analyst for Rotoworld, NBC Sports Bet, WGN Radio. You can find him everywhere. And I love his daily gambling podcast. It's called Chicken Dinner. So, Sam, let's kick this off, man, and welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on today.
Vic, I appreciate you having me on. I only hope that I can provide you with a winner like you provided me with on Chicken Dinner. Didn't you have the Broncos and they were down like 31-10 and they came back and won? So
I felt so bad. I was like, dude, I go on this guy's show the first time, I give the Broncos and they're down like 31-3. And I was like burying my head. But
it was never in doubt. It was never in doubt.
Never in doubt. And then you texted me as soon as the game was over. I was like, thank God. I felt so bad. But Drew Lock came through, and that's how we had to kick it off, man. So I'm glad we won that bet. But thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. So first and foremost, before we jump into NFL games, I always like to ask my guests how they got into the gambling scene. So I'd love to hear your story because you do a bunch of cool stuff in the gambling space. So I'll hand it over to you.
It started in high school. I got, wind of this information. And I think at that time, that would have been my junior year of high school. And I think that's when a lot of South Side of Chicago kids start to bet because they, can drive cars, they can do things, they're not around their parents 24/7. So you get exposed to a lot of things. Like people start dipping, people start drinking, others start betting. And I had this buddy in one of my classes that just kept saying, all right, well, Texas with Vince Young, I think Texas that year was 11-1 ATS, and the over just kept cashing that year. That was the year that Texas went to the national championship at the Rose Bowl and played USC. And that game was back and forth, back and forth. So my first real season of, gambling on sports or betting on sports, whatever you want to call it, was the Vince Young year. And we just rode Texas pretty much every single week and thought, wow, this is easy. And then it sort of bled into, NFL. And then, of course, you're betting on the NBA and college basketball and March Madness. And, my dad took me to Vegas when I turned 21, let me bring a couple of buddies. And it was just always around. And, we used to do the pools in March for March Madness, too. I used to run those pools. I almost got busted in high school for taking $5 from like 100 people or whatever. So I guess it started when I was a kid, 16, 17 years old. And I think you learn a lot when you lose, and I sort of shed all the bad habits. I'm still learning though every single day. You have to keep learning, or you're not doing it right. So that's when it started though. Vince Young and the over when he was having that monster season down in Austin.
I love it, man. I wish it was that easy, right? I had a similar experience in college. I had started where I don't know if you remember Eddie House. I'm a little older than you, so Arizona State. Somehow, some way, this is when me and my buddy, similar story. He was like, yo, there's this guy, Eddie House. He plays in the West Coast. Everyone else is asleep. We're finally in college, so we don't have to go to sleep. And we're watching this guy's West Coast games at Arizona State and on TV. Every Thursday night, we would bet on him. And I don't even remember. This is a long time ago. But he cashed every single week, and we were addicted to gambling since then. So it's been, I think that was like 99 or 2000. So I'm showing my age a little bit. But
well, I think everybody has that team or that player. I'll take it back. I'm a sophomore in college down at U of I, and my roommate and I discovered this guy that nobody really knew who he was. But we watched, I think they went to Maui this year, or they played in one of the big preseason tournaments. I don't know if it was Jamaica or Maui or whatever. But we landed on this 6'10" monster at Oklahoma named Blake Griffin. And this is before everybody knows who Blake Griffin is.
Yeah.
And this is the team. It was Blake and Taylor Griffin. It was Willie Warren, Austin Johnson, Tony Crocker, the guy who used to wear sleeves on both arms.
Yeah.
And we rode Oklahoma. That was the year they ended up going to the tournament and taking North Carolina down to the wire. But you talk about betting on a player or betting on a team and just always getting to the window. Oklahoma that year, they had to be 20-5 or better against the number in the regular season. They might have even played more games than that, but it was something like 21-6 or 20-5 against the number. And you just have to you got to keep eating cereal. I mean, at that point, you got to do it.
I love it, man. On the flip side of that, I also learned never to take a big money line favorite in college. So all that money we built up from Eddie House. This is in college, so this is a lot of money, a couple $100, right? We put. So I went to Marquette. Up the road is Wisconsin. Wisconsin never loses at home. That's like a given. My entire college career, growing up, they're playing some team I've never heard of called Butler. It was like, minus 10,000 money line at home or something. And of course, that's the Butler that we know. And they upset them at home. So I learned that was the first time I actually learned on the flip side of that. Not because I was like, sure thing. Me and my buddy, 1 year of success. We're like, this is easy. We're just going to gamble. We're just going to quit college. We're just going to, like keep it rolling. And that was the other side of that, man. So no, those are fun stories. Thanks for sharing. And then I'll segue into football. One more question for you is then, what was your first gig in the gambling space?
My first gig would have been chicken dinner, honestly, but that wasn't a paid gig. I always say, I've told this story many times, and it's worth repeating here because your audience is a different audience than my audience. I used to do the updates on weekend mornings on WGN radio, and my job was to report, what happened the night before and what's coming up today. So if it was a Saturday, I'd give Bulls scores from Friday night. I'd give, information from the White Sox or Cub game or whatever. And then, oh, by the way, it's September 17th and Illinois is going to Wisconsin and Wisconsin's a 17-point favorite. Or on Sunday, you get ready for the Bears game. It's the Bears against the Giants and Mitch Trubisky's probable. Kyle Long probably at that point was doubtful. He was always doubtful that year, I think. And then you get through the injuries and you go, and the Bears are favored by 6. And it was just one line. It wasn't like, go bet the Bears or go bet the Giants. It was informational because I thought, people gamble on this stuff, but it wasn't legal at the time. And I had somebody at the station say, we don't think it's a good idea to give the point spread out. And I thought, okay. So I did it again a couple more times and they said, stop giving the point spread. So that wasn't really, kosher at the time. So that after that, we started Chicken Dinner. And I just thought it was an outlet for people that couldn't talk about it on terrestrial radio or television to do it on a podcast. So the first gambling gig was a podcast with myself and Joe Ostrowski, who's now doing Bet Sweats over at radio.com. And they're doing a great job. And I saw they just extended Nikki Costos, another buddy of mine. So we all sort of had to find an avenue to do it, but we couldn't do it mainstream. So Chicken Dinner was in 2016. We started it in August. Did that show for about a year and a half and then moved to Vegas to work at VSiN and now came back to Chicago. It's legal here. I mean, the magic carpet has just sort of left the station. And I think, it's going to continue to sort of fly through the air and the deal. I mean, the racket, it's getting more and more steam every single day. But the first job I ever had was co-host of Chicken Dinner. Didn't take a single dollar on that. We did that because it was fun. And we did it because we knew that there was an audience in Chicago for people that gambled on sports, even though the networks and the stations wouldn't pay any attention to it. We knew it was happening.
Yep. No, that's great. And it's amazing how much it's changed just in these past couple of years. You nailed it, from TV to radio to all the media companies, all the stakeholders that are now involved. And it's wild to see. It's cool to see because we're both we're both in it and we see it from a daily basis. But a lot of new people are in the game now too. Well, I think it keeps going. We'll see what happens from there. But I love that your first thing was kind of unpaid because that's what, if you love something, that's what you got to do to get in it, right? And you guys had the foresight to kind of see it coming as well. So I hope, I get hit up a lot on like Twitter is like, how do you get into this space? Like, how do you get a job? So I always like to just, ask the guests that come on anything that they have or how they got started. And it does resonate with a lot of people. So, thanks for sharing that. Now let's get to the good stuff, man. Let's talk a little NFL. I always got to start with these guys that have, I don't know about ruined my life, but it's been pretty sad, man. I went to school in Wisconsin. This is when they had Brett Favre. This is when they won the Super Bowl. It's been a lot of misery, but I don't know. I still watch every single game, every single minute, even last Sunday when it was like 80 degrees outside. So I want to pick your brain. Let's talk Monday night a little. Bears, Vikings. I actually think this is a good spot for the Bears. They've done really well against Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook. It's Vikings minus 2.5. Do you like a side over prop, anything?
I actually went under 45. I talked about this on Tuesday on Chicken Dinner, and I went through. And before I look at the trends, I I try to do the trends to supplement the pick. I don't scroll through trends and go, oh, there's a good trend. I like that pick. I make the pick first. I mean, everybody has a different process as how they get to picks or whatever, but I just looked at the number 45. It opened offshore 46 and then immediately went down to 45. And a lot of these moves, you have to bet them early in the week. So Tuesday on the show, I said, look, 45 is a really high number for these two teams because Kirk Cousins, in 3 games with the Vikings against the Chicago defense, he's 0-3, and they're averaging 12 points per game. They just don't move the ball that well. He just hasn't been able to take shots downfield, and then the Bears have a pretty good pass rush. So I didn't like that, the Vikings were favored, but I also don't want to bet the Bears. So I thought, well, how can I get down on this game? You look at Chicago's offensive line, still only one healthy player from week 1, Charles Leno, the left tackle. Everybody else is either a bum or a backup or both.
Yeah.
And then you look at David Montgomery, probably not going to play, still in the concussion protocol. So a team that can't run the ball and doesn't run the ball and won't run the ball has to rely on an offensive line with one healthy player and Nick Foles, who can't stay out of his own way. So I can make a case for both teams winning. So if that's the case, you stay away. But the total, 45 currently, some books down to 43 as we tape this thing. It's 43 at a couple books right now. I then saw the trend that the last 30 Bears games have seen 21 unders and 9 overs. So you're like, oh, wow. Sometimes those trends are too good to be true, but I think a trend like that with play calling that's really abysmal, quarterback play that's not great at all, and a really good defense. I mean, Chicago is still 3rd overall in total team DVOA at Football Outsiders. It's a really good defense, a really pathetic offense against a team that I think is sort of high right now, stock-wise. I mean, Minnesota, they were a 2-point dog in the look-ahead. Now they're a 2.5-point favorite. So I don't want to bet Minnesota. Also, Kirk Cousins 0-9 on Monday Night Football. Good luck with that. I think the under 45 is a good bet. I still, I like it at 43, but you go through that key number 44. But I think it's 20-17 either way. I don't know who wins. I will say this, though. If you like Chicago, you should probably wait. This thing will definitely get to 3. Don't take 2.5 in the NFL, especially when I think 3 you'll get to 3 because the public will bet Minnesota and the books will need Minnesota too. They're going to move it to 3 eventually.
No, I agree with everything that you said. A lot of the points you stated is why I liked Chicago, and I grabbed them at +3 when I first saw it Sunday night when it first dropped. But I like the under as well, man. What is your opinion? A lot of people are for teasers. A lot of people don't like teasers. A lot of people like teasing them through key numbers. Is this a game when you're looking at like maybe the Bears and the under as a potential tease?
I don't like to tease in the same game because unfortunately you're sort of, sometimes rooting against yourself on every play. Like if I have the Bears and I have the over, I'm rooting for the Bears, but I don't want them to kick a field goal, don't score a touchdown. So I hate to middle myself, I guess, but that Chicago side is definitely a wise guy teaser play because you go through 3, you go through 6, and you go through 7. I didn't actually tease that game because, like I said, I already picked the under. But if you're looking for a teaser leg potentially with Chicago, if you want to go from 2.5 to 8.5, there are 2 sides that make a lot of sense. Seattle right now is catching 2 against the LA Rams. Seattle's been very good off a loss historically under Pete Carroll. And you can take Russell Wilson from +2 through 3, 4, 6, and 7 up to 8. That makes sense. And I really want to bet Baltimore, but I think everybody likes Baltimore this weekend, laying 7 at New England, and it's still Belichick against Lamar Jackson. That makes me nervous. If Baltimore wins by a field goal, I wouldn't be stunned. But you can take Baltimore from -7. It'll be very popular to tease this pick, and that sort of makes me nervous too. I don't like to bet the popular pick that the bartender likes. But Baltimore from -7 to -1 should be good.
I like that. You touched on a couple of games that I was going to ask you about anyway. But, dude, the bartender segment, we got to take a pause from this. It's amazing because, like, that, like, is literally, like, all my friends, right? And it makes sense. It's, like, exactly what they see on TV, like recency bias to a T, last game. And so I love that you have that. I love that you post that on Twitter. Before we jump off, I'll have, you let everyone know where they can find you. But I love just seeing when you post that, and I kind of feel a little bit better when I'm on the opposite side. Let's just say that. So.
Well, you see the bartender's picks, and just quickly, he's the guy who's really good at being bad. He picks the worst sides. There's a sigh of relief. You're right. When you see the bartender's picks and you're not on his side, you're like, woof, thank God, because the guy is so good. Like last week, he went 0-2. He had Arizona against Miami and he had Seattle against Buffalo, and both favorites lost outright. He's very good at doing that.
Yep. So I love that, man. It's always a fun thing to find when I follow you on Twitter. So the next big game that I wanted to talk to you about is Tampa Bay at Carolina. So everyone's kind of off the Tampa Bay ship a little bit after they got whopped on Sunday night, right? So what are you feeling in this game? I think that the Bucks bounce back in this spot. CMC is out for the Panthers. Carolina did play the Chiefs really, really well. The line has gone back up to around 5.5 and 6 is what I'm seeing it settled at after CMC was out. So do you like a side or any prop plays or anything in this game?
I think you made a good point about buying low. I mean, that you didn't say it specifically, but I mean, that's exactly what you're getting at, buying low on Tampa Bay, because everybody watched them on Sunday night get absolutely pounded by the Saints. So there's a little bit of bettor's remorse there. And it's sort of like me, you know, I don't want to bet Michigan in college football because I had Michigan against Indiana. I'm not betting Michigan this week, even though the number feels right. Oh, Michigan +4 at home against Wisconsin. I want to do it so bad, but I can't. So I think a lot of those bettors that took Tampa against New Orleans on prime time, they're not going to bet this game. Also, you have the Carolina Panthers, who were a 70-yard field goal or whatever away from beating Kansas City. So perceptionally, it's the accordion where Tampa Bay looked really bad, Carolina looked really good, almost beat Mahomes and company. So I think you're right. I don't think this will be, you know, the public road favorite. I mean, people will still bet Tampa because people love to bet favorites, but I think this is an advantageous spot for you. If you didn't bet Tampa last week, this could be a good chance to get on them against a team that everybody just watched almost beat Kansas City. You're right. Every time it goes down, it comes back up. Open 6, got down to 5. We're starting to see more 5.5 and a couple 6s back in the market. So anything under a touchdown, I feel like is good on Tampa. I didn't bet it personally, and I'm not going to, but it makes sense. The total also going up in this one too. 47 on the open, up to 51. I imagine that will keep climbing when we get closer to Sunday. But no, I wouldn't fight you on a Tampa Bay bet, not at all.
Yeah, I just think it's like you said, a lot of recency bias in this game, and I like to fade the trendy dog in a lot of spots sometimes, especially in like a situational spot like this. When it comes to Tampa Bay, their defense, as bad as it looked, is still pretty good, and I think they'll be able. Their linebackers should be able to contain Mike Davis, Teddy Bridgewater in this matchup. So yeah, let's see how it goes, man. Seattle, LA, you touched on a little bit. I know smart guys on both sides of this game. We're seeing the line has gone up to 2. You talked about a little bit from a teaser's perspective. Do you like Seattle at +2, even if it wasn't in a dip?
No, I don't. And this is crucial because I don't trust their defense still. And if it goes to overtime and the Rams kick a field goal or the Rams win by 6, I'm going to get hosed, and I don't want that. So I want the luxury of having, you know, the extra points here. I think this is a perfect teaser spot. I already touched on it. I think going from 2 to 8 makes a whole lot of sense because then you're safe. You know, the problem with such a little spread is that you have no margin for error at all. And I think that's sort of why I look at this Miami number too. I mean, I know you asked me about Seattle and LA, but Miami has been, you know, the secret underdog, and now they're the public 3-point favorite, and there's no room for error there. So that makes me nervous with Seattle. I mean, I've been talking about this on the show for a while. Defensively, they are so bad in so many different metrics, and I think Russ can keep it close. I think he can keep it interesting, but if they lose by 3 or lose by 6 or 7 late, I'm going to be so PO'd. So I think it's a good teaser spot. I would take Seattle. It's probably one of my favorite teaser spots of the week because even if they're down 10 or down 13 late in the fourth quarter, we know Russ is going to cook with the back door open for the teaser. So I don't think this is a game that ever gets put to bed. They're going to have a fighting chance to cover that 8 no matter what.
Yeah, their D is just horrendous, man. Like I saw somebody tweet this earlier today. It was like their game totals have been like 65, 63, 69, 71, 78. And so it's just insane how bad their D is. And it's crazy how good he is, right? And I feel like he's always getting that miraculous 4th and 7, just whatever it takes to. I have PTSD betting against the guy, so I'm laying off this game, but I do like him to tease, like you said, just because the back door will always be open with him. So speaking of back doors, I like to. I've seen you reference him too. Just Joe Burrow, man, backdoor Burrow. The kid can play. Very impressive to watch him play. He's playing with no offensive line. I know a lot of Bears fans make all these excuses. Hey, we were missing 4 of our offensive linemen. Joe Burrow didn't have 4 of his offensive linemen. They beat the Titans, a couple weeks ago. So the kids look good. I saw the number at 7.5. I know it's kind of off the board right now because Big Ben on the COVID list, but I'm hearing he's coming back kind of like Stafford did last weekend. And so anything that you have on this game, any thoughts at all?
Yeah, I talked to somebody who, is close to the Pittsburgh Steelers, actually, and I didn't tell you this beforehand, so you're not just lobbing me softballs here. I had somebody just tell me that they're just fatigued. Pittsburgh is sort of, they're off to an 8-0 start, and that's, very, very solid in the NFL. It's hard to go 8 straight games and win all 8 of them, but they just look gassed, man. And I think there's something to be said about a team peaking too early. I mean, Ben already is starting to look slow. He didn't really play all that great against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
He got knocked out in the second quarter, and then they had to bring in the backup with 7 seconds to go or whatever. So he's sort of up and down, and now we have the COVID situation. But Cincinnati's been good for the bankroll. They've covered, I think, every game but 2 up to week 10. So they've been very good for your wallet. I see a couple 7.5s in Vegas. I also see it off the board at a lot of places. But I think Pittsburgh eventually is going to lose a game. I don't know that that's a solid handicap. I don't know that you could fade them ATS until they lose, but they didn't cover against Dallas. They got very lucky to cover against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, Baltimore turned it over 4 times in that game and still almost came back and won.
Yep.
I think the dog is barking here for sure, and the line movement makes sense. I mean, the look-ahead number was Pittsburgh -10, and now it's down to 7.5. I saw one book had a 6.5. So respected money definitely on the Bengals, and that plays into the fact that I think Pittsburgh is a little fatigued right now. They've just been going through a lot of tough games against some really good teams. I mean, the Dallas was a kind of a dud spot, but they just look a little gassed, and I'd be careful here. But if you're going to bet Cincinnati, make sure you get a good number. Make sure you get 7 or 7.5. Don't wait until Sunday. This thing might cross through 7. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I like that. I'm glad we are kind of on the same page there. Last game I'll ask you about, because I have a buddy that's a Bills fan. He absolutely loves the Cards in the spot. So Buffalo at Arizona. Buffalo coming off a huge win against Seattle at home. The line is jumping around right now. Arizona -2, 2.5 across the board. I'm seeing. Anything you like in this game?
I think it's a good bounce back for Arizona. I think the total is amazingly high at 56, but we've seen Cliff Kingsbury. I think more than the offense flying up and down the field, I don't know that he really knows how to manage a game yet from the other side. I mean, he gave Tua and the Dolphins many opportunities to come down the field with a nice little stretch of time on the clock. So I don't know about Cliff as a total game manager yet. I think he's tremendous with the offense, but I don't know that he still has everything done. I think he's learning a lot on the fly, but this number just tells you it's going to be a shootout. And this could be one of those games where the last team to have the ball wins, a lot like Miami and Arizona, right? I mean, that game could have gone either way in the final 5 minutes. I think the number is a little bit lower because Arizona just lost and Buffalo just beat Seattle. So that gives you a little bit of value maybe on Arizona if it's 1.5 or 2. But I will say this: if you have Arizona -1.5, either buy it down to 1 or take the money line. I know some guys say games don't land 1, but Arizona games will land 1 eventually. With Cliff, I don't like buying points or taking money lines often, but if Arizona wins by 1 and you lay 1.5, you're going to hate yourself. And that's not a place you want to be on a Sunday night after a long weekend. I wouldn't bet Buffalo. I think Buffalo's a little high right now. If they were a stock, they just beat Seattle. Arizona a little bit low. I like the zig when everybody zags. I think Arizona at -1, -1.5. I think it's a good number, but I don't want you to get hooked. So do what you got to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Buffalo has a bye coming up as well. Travel, non-conference game, coming off of such a big win at home. So yeah, I definitely like them in this spot, and I will leave it to you. So before we jump off, I always like to ask everyone that comes on, what is your favorite pick? It could be a prop bet aside, a total, what's your pick of the week? Like you asked me. So are we going Broncos or who are we rolling with?
I am not betting the Broncos. No, I think you got off that train at the perfect time, brother.
Yeah.
I do love the Chicago, Minnesota under. Full disclosure, we got 45. At 43, it's. I don't know that I love it as much because it is about the right team and the right price. But there's a game in college football. Take a peek at Wake Forest. They are catching 13.5 on the road at North Carolina. And Wake is really playing some good football as of late. People love Carolina because they score a lot of points.
Yeah.
And they have Sam Howell who can shoot the ball down the field, with the flick of a wrist. But Dave Clawson has a really good team, and he's built a really strong program in Winston-Salem. And I think them getting almost 2 touchdowns, if you wait it out, you might get 14. But I feel good. I think they have a chance to win this game outright. I like Wake plus 13.5 in college football. It won't be popular, and that makes me like it even more.
All right, you sold me, man. I'm going to add it to my card. I should have a set while I'm on these things. I should have my phone out so I can put some of these on so I can get the best number. Well, I appreciate your time, Sam. It was fun having you on, man. Let everyone know where they can find your work on Twitter or just in general.
Yeah, it's easy if you just go to Twitter, you type in SP Shoot, like shooting a basketball, SP Shoot, and you can find everything there. The labor of love is Chicken Dinner, the podcast that we do Monday through Friday here in Chicago, and NBC, WGN, Rotoworld. They do it all. But if you go to the Twitter page, you can find your way to wherever you want to go. And if you give Chicken Dinner a shout out or a click or whatever, I will appreciate it. And just make sure you're not on the same side as the bartender, Vic. You got to make sure you listen to that Friday show, see what he's on. And if you go the other way more times than not, you'll be a winner.
I agree. I love it. Well, thanks again, Sam. It was great having you on, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Take care.